4 minutes to contact. Update on the flank? Sir, radar confirms they're on approach. Get me a visual lock, now. Status report, time is critical.
All teams are mobilizing, sir.
Good, keep me posted.
Yes, sir.
The launch has occurred. Trajectories show a high-speed missile and attack vector. Our systems are active, tracking the threat. Intercepts are in progress.
Hours sounds like a lot, until you understand what actually has to happen inside those 4 hours.
This map shows real-time missile trajectories from key global hotspots. Arcs connect launch points in the US and Russia to targets in Europe and the Middle East. The map shows active missile trajectories from launch sites here and here. This demands immediate strategic countermeasures.
What the warning time really
Confirmed.
means from a
Silo
military
construction has
standpoint,
accelerated.
and
Copy
the
that from
truth
Malays.
about what
Good, let's
American
flag this for
soldiers in the
CENTCOM.
region are actually facing that almost nobody's talking about, honestly. Let's get into it. So, first, let's deal with the headline. Multiple reports, including those from U.S. defense officials speaking to outlets like CNN and the Associated Press, indicated that American forces received advance intelligence that an Iranian strike is imminent. The window most commonly cited is roughly 2 to 4 hours of actionable warning before missiles launched. Now, if you're sitting at home, 4 hours sounds comfortable. That's a movie and a half. That's a road trip to the next state. Plenty of time, right? Wrong. Here's what 4 hours looks like on a military base. When you know ballistic missiles are inbound, you have to identify which assets can be moved and which can't. An F-35 can taxi and take off. A concrete hangar cannot relocate. Fuel depots, ammunition stores, communication ways, these are fixed infrastructure. They stay where they are. You have to disperse personnel. That means waking up off-duty soldiers, recalling anyone on local leave, moving hundreds or thousands of people away from known target areas to hardened shelters, many of which were designed decades ago for a different threat environment. You have to spin up your air defense systems, Patriot batteries, the THAAD units, anything in the layered defense architecture. These systems need time to power up, calibrate, and integrate into the command network. It's not flipping a switch. And you have to do all of this while maintaining operational security, because if your response is visible, satellites pick it up, and the enemy can adjust targeting in real time. 4 hours isn't comfortable. It's barely enough. And here's the part that doesn't get discussed nearly enough. That 4-hour window, it came from intelligence, not from radar detection. The actual radar detection time for a medium-range ballistic missile launched from Iranian territory toward Gulf bases is measured in minutes. Depending on the trajectory and the specific missile type, you might get somewhere between 8 and 15 minutes from launch detection to impact. The 4 hours was a gift from intelligence gathering, signals, intercepts, satellite imagery of launch preparations, human intelligence. That's what bought the time, not the defense system itself, which raises an uncomfortable question. What happens on the day that intelligence window doesn't open? What happens when Iran launches without the preparatory signatures that American surveillance is trained to detect? That's not a hypothetical, that's a capability gap. And the people who study this for a living are very aware of it. Now, let's talk about the strikes themselves, because the public narrative and the military reality are two different conversations. After Iran's October 2024 attack on Israel, which involved roughly 180 ballistic missiles, according to the IDF's own reporting, both American and Israeli officials described the defensive response as a success, and by certain metrics, it was. The overwhelming majority of missiles were intercepted or failed to reach their targets. Casualties were minimal. Critical infrastructure remained largely intact. But here's what success looked like from the defense side. Multiple Patriot batteries fired, THAAD systems engaged, Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 interceptors were used, David Sling activated, ships in the eastern Mediterranean launched SM-3 interceptors. It took the combined defensive architecture of two countries, plus support from Jordan and reportedly other regional partners to achieve that result. And some missiles still got through. Satellite imagery analyzed by open-source intelligence groups showed impact craters at Nevatim Air Base in Israel. That's not disputed. Missiles hit the ground inside a major military installation despite the full weight of the most advanced, multi-layered missile defense system on Earth being activated against them. The defense worked, but it didn't work perfectly. And the cost of that defense is a conversation almost nobody wants to have publicly. Each Patriot interceptor costs between $3 and $4 million, depending on the variant. THAAD interceptors run north of $12 million each. Arrow 3 interceptors are estimated at around $3 million per round. And these numbers only account for the munitions themselves, not the operational costs, not the wear on the systems, not the logistics of resupply. Iran's ballistic missiles, particularly the older Shahab variants, and even the newer Fattah series, cost a fraction of what the interceptors cost. This is the math problem that defense planners call the cost-exchange ratio, and it currently favors the attackers significantly. Now, does that mean missile defense is useless? Absolutely not. It saved lives. That matters more than any budget spreadsheet. But strategically, the economics of this exchange are not sustainable indefinitely, and anyone telling you otherwise either hasn't done the math or is choosing not to share it. So, let's get to the part that I think matters most and gets the least honest coverage. There are tens of thousands of American service members deployed across the Middle East right now. Exact numbers shift constantly, but credible estimates based on Department of Defense reporting and Congressional Research Service data put the figure somewhere north of 40,000 across the Gulf states, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and various naval deployments. These are real people. They have families, they have return dates circled on calendars back home, and they are living in a threat environment that has changed dramatically in ways that the public conversation hasn't caught up with. Here's what I mean. For most of the last 2 decades, the primary threat to American soldiers in the Middle East was asymmetric IEDs, small arms fire, rocket attacks from militias using unguided Katyusha-style rockets that were dangerous but imprecise. The bases were designed around this threat. Concrete blast walls, hardened shelters, cram systems that could intercept incoming rockets with reasonable reliability. That threat environment has evolved. The militia groups across Iraq and Syria, many of which receive support and training from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, have upgraded their arsenals significantly. We're not talking about unguided rockets anymore. We're talking about one-way attack drones with GPS guidance. We're talking about precision-guided rockets that can hit specific buildings rather than landing randomly inside a base perimeter. And in the most escalated scenarios, we're talking about ballistic missiles from Iranian territory that fly faster than anything those base defense systems were designed for. In January 2024, a drone attack on Tower 22, a small U.S. outpost in Jordan near the Syrian border, killed 3 American soldiers and wounded over 40. 3 families got the worst phone call imaginable because a single drone found a gap in the defense coverage of a small installation. That attack didn't come from Iran directly. It came from an Iran-backed militia, but it demonstrated something that military analysts had been warning about. The threat has outpaced the defenses at many of the smaller installations where American troops are stationed. The larger bases, Al Udeid in Qatar, Al Dhafra in the UAE, Arfjeen in Kuwait, have significantly better protection, multi-layered air defense, better hardening, more resources. But soldiers don't only exist on the large bases. They're at outposts, forward operating locations, advisory positions, places where the defense architecture is thinner. And here's what almost never makes the news. These soldiers are under near constant alert rotations, sleep disrupted by warning alarms that may or may not indicate a real incoming threat. The stress of knowing that the political decisions being made thousands of miles away directly determine whether tonight is quiet or whether tonight is the night the sirens are real. The Department of Defense doesn't publish comprehensive data on the mental health impact of sustained high-threat deployments in the current Middle East environment. But if you talk to veterans of these rotations, and I have, the picture is consistent. The cumulative stress of this kind of deployment, even without direct combat, leaves marks that don't show up on the evening news. These soldiers deserve an honest conversation about what they're being asked to do and why. Not political talking points, not propaganda from any direction, honest answers. So, where does all of this leave us? Let me try to lay out what we actually know versus what's being assumed. What we know is that Iran has demonstrated the ability to launch large-scale ballistic missile salvos. That's verified. What we know is that current missile defense systems can intercept a significant percentage of those missiles, but not all of them. That's verified by impact evidence. What we know is that the cost of defense is dramatically higher than the cost of attack. That's basic arithmetic. What we know is that American soldiers are deployed across a region where the threat has evolved faster than many of the defense systems protecting them. That's supported by incident data and expert analysis. What remains unclear is how much further escalation will go. Anyone telling you they know exactly what happens next is selling certainty they don't possess. The situation is fluid. It involves multiple state and non-state actors with competing interests, and the historical track record of confident predictions about Middle East conflicts is, to put it charitably, not great. What responsible analysts are saying is that the window for diplomatic engagement remains open but is narrowing, that military escalation has its own momentum that becomes harder to reverse with each cycle, and that the people who bear the greatest cost of these decisions, soldiers on the ground, civilians in the affected countries, are rarely the people making them. I want to close with something that isn't tactical or strategic, it's just honest. The way this conflict is being covered by almost everyone treats it as content, as engagement, as a vehicle for views and clicks and ad revenue. And I'm not pretending this channel exists outside that